Hello and welcome. My name is Brian Caplen. I'm editor of the Banker magazine. We're at the International American Development Bank annual meeting in Mendoza. I'm with Mauricio Cardenas, the Colombian finance minister. Welcome, Mauricio.
Thank you,
And obviously, Colombia has recovered from a very difficult economic period, and you're set to grow at 2.7% in 2018. I mean, is that going to be sufficient? Is that your ambitions for the growth, or do you want to see it grow a bit further than that?
No, we definitely want to see it higher than that. Colombia is a country that on average has grown at about 4.5%. So anything below 4.5 is a disappointment. However, we have to understand the context in which we are operating now. Venezuela, which is a very important trading partner, or was an important trading partner,
Faces difficulties.
is in a 3-year prolonged recession. Oil prices have recovered, and that's good for us, but they are still quite below what we had in the past. And the same goes for other exports that we have. But this year is going to be better than last year, and it's on a path of recovery. There is a big debate about where is the new potential growth for Colombia. But
more than 2.7.
Yeah, it's more than 2.7.
Okay, now you talked about, obviously you had to make some difficult decisions during the recession period, and you talked about intelligent austerity. So what do you mean by that?
Well, we lost 3% of our GDP in government revenues. That's a major shock. So we had to cut government programs, but we decided to do it intelligently. That's the intelligent austerity. So we decided that it was very important to keep the social programs that had the greatest impact on the reduction in poverty. And this is a remarkable achievement because poverty in Colombia continued to decline.
Yeah, even during the worst period?
Even during the years of the dramatic shock in terms of our exports. Keep in mind that Colombia lost half of its exports. Colombia used to be a country with $60 billion in exports, and suddenly was a country with $30 billion in exports. We didn't have a recession, we didn't have a crisis, and we didn't have any reversal in terms of social progress. Poverty continued to fall. We started our government in 2010 with a 40% poverty rate. Now it's 26.9%. So it's a major decline in poverty. And despite the magnitude of that shock, that's intelligent austerity. We kept the most relevant and effective social programs.
Okay, now as you go forward, I mean, you've still got to watch the money. And you've mentioned public-private partnerships as a way ahead. And I was very interested when you were talking about how you might be able to use that for things like classrooms, which are not obvious things for PPP.
Absolutely. I mean, intelligent austerity is also that we don't have the fiscal space to do infrastructure projects. But we can bring the private sector through PPPs. Everyone thinks about highways for PPPs, but there are many other things you can do. We can build schools. And that's what we're doing. We're building more schools and more schools facilities to do something that is very important also for growth and for equity, which is have students stay longer periods of time, longer hours during the day in the schools.
And as I understand it, the PPP can actually cover not just the building of the classroom, but the maintenance and the supply of food.
Yes, because there is a big debate about the corruption associated with this food that is processed and brought to the school. So why not have the private sector deliver that food as part of their contract? So they have the obligation to build the school, to maintain the school, and to give students a lunch or different. They have to provide different meals depending on the hours, but that's part of the package.
Okay. Now, obviously, one of the key themes at the whole annual meeting here has been political risk in Latin America. Colombia has presidential elections in May. Should investors be worried about that?
Not really. I mean, elections are always and will always be uncertain and will create some political uncertainty. But we already had congressional elections. That was a couple of weeks ago. And the congressional elections basically resulted in the parties that support responsible economic policies having the majority. So a populist in the executive would not be able to implement a reversal in terms of what we do, which is strong fiscal policy, independent central bank, strong financial regulation. So that's a positive result. And the rating agencies have already written about this, saying that the composition of the next Congress is a guarantee for investors.
Okay, and I mean, finally, do you think that some of the bigger risk is actually outside of the region, where we're seeing, the possibility of trade wars? I mean, how could that impact on Colombia?
Yeah, well, we're concerned about that, and we dislike any form of protectionism. Colombia is a very open economy, not just in terms of trade, services, investment flows. We are about to join the OECD. That's a big goal. That's something we want to do before the end of the Santos administration. We just have one committee which is pending for our approval, which is the Trade Committee. Out of 23 committees at the OECD, 22 have already approved us. So trade is a key issue for us, and we want to basically send the message that for countries in the world, it's just an absolute mistake to start a trade war, because you don't know where that ends. You know where it starts, but you don't know where it ends. The U.S., for example, in the case of Colombia, the U.S. benefits from the free trade that they have with us. They have a surplus with Colombia. This is a dynamic country that's buying airplanes, that is buying technology, that's buying equipment. That's good for the U.S. So we should keep it that way.
Minister, thank you very much for sharing your thoughts.
Thanks, Brian.